Did you know that most people after the age of 70 pass away from a handful of quiet, insidious causes that often give no clear warning? This is the truth rarely spoken about. It's not always intense pain or dramatic symptoms that claim lives in their 70s and 80s. Instead, it's the slow, silent damage that accumulates over time, the subtle signals that go unnoticed, and the small issues we dismiss for years because they seem insignificant. According to a study conducted in Chicago, the majority of these deaths are tied to just a few slow-moving silent conditions that frequently show no obvious signs until it's too late. This message isn't meant to frighten you. It's meant to prepare you. Understanding the true causes of death after 70 isn't about instilling fear. It's about fostering awareness. Awareness empowers action. When you can identify the real threats, you can respond to them. You can make small, meaningful changes in how you live, how you monitor your health, and how you care for the body that has carried you this far. In this discussion, we will explore 6 primary causes that account for nearly all deaths after the age of 70. We'll examine what makes these conditions so dangerous, why they often go undetected, and how you can start recognizing and addressing them now, before they escalate into a crisis. These aren't distant abstract problems. They're common, and the more you know, the more control you have. Stay with us until the end, because the 6th cause might surprise you. It's not a disease, but it's something that sends more seniors to the hospital than most people realize, often triggering a decline that's difficult to reverse. Let's begin. One of the most prevalent causes of death after 70 doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It doesn't come with sirens or loud warning bells. It creeps in quietly, through the gradual buildup of plaque in the arteries, the stiffening of blood vessels, and the silent rise in pressure that accumulates year after year. This is cardiovascular disease, and it accounts for a staggering portion of deaths among seniors, not because it's rare, but because it hides in plain sight. The heart doesn't always give a clear warning before it fails. Sometimes the first symptom of heart disease is sudden cardiac arrest. Other times, it's a stroke that arrives without pain but leaves behind irreversible damage. While the signs may be subtle, shortness of breath while climbing stairs, lingering fatigue, or swelling in the ankles, many people dismiss them as mere signs of aging, never realizing they're indications of a body struggling to keep blood flowing where it's needed. Consider the story of Harold, a 76-year-old man who was active, sharp, and seemingly healthy. He walked every morning and ate what he believed was a decent diet, but one night after dinner he slumped over in his chair. By the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late. What no one knew was that Harold had been living with high blood pressure for decades. He had stopped checking it because he felt fine, until the day he didn't. That's how cardiovascular disease operates. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It moves silently, gradually, until one day it's no longer quiet. But there's good news. This condition is one of the most preventable. Regular screenings, managing blood pressure and cholesterol, staying active in ways that don't stress your joints, and being mindful of salt and sugar intake. These aren't just recommendations, they're lifelines. The older you get, the more critical it is to take symptoms like fatigue seriously. That flutter in your chest, the pressure in your jaw or shoulder, the breathlessness you feel when you used to climb stairs with ease. These may not be dramatic, but they're not meaningless. They're your body whispering before it screams. Avoiding this silent killer doesn't require perfection. It requires awareness. It means paying attention when your body speaks, no matter how softly, because the cost of ignoring it can be the very years you've worked so hard to reach. The lungs age differently than the heart. They don't burst or shut down in a single moment. Instead, they wear down slowly, silently, until one day you realize you're struggling to catch your breath after doing things that once felt simple. After 70, the risks associated with this loss of lung function can be devastating. Respiratory failure, caused by decades of smoking, pollution, untreated infections, or chronic conditions like COPD, ranks among the leading causes of death for older adults. Often it creeps in so gradually that it's mistaken for fatigue or simply getting older. You might notice it during daily activities, walking from the kitchen to the bedroom and needing to sit down, a persistent cough that never fully goes away, a wheeze at night, or tightness in your chest when you lie flat. These aren't always dramatic, but they're rarely insignificant. They're often signals of lungs that are no longer exchanging oxygen as efficiently as they once did. And this slow loss of oxygen affects everything. Your brain, your energy, even your heart. Take the example of Linda, an 82-year-old woman who never smoked a day in her life but spent years in a house where others did. She also lived in a city with poor air quality for decades. Over time, her lungs lost elasticity, and she developed what her doctor called restrictive lung disease, a condition that made it harder and harder to breathe deeply. She thought she was just slowing down, but in truth, her body was starving for oxygen. By the time she was diagnosed, her lungs were too scarred to recover fully. Lung damage doesn't always stem from a single source. Sometimes it's the flu that turned into pneumonia and never quite healed. Sometimes it's repeated exposure to chemicals or smoke. Sometimes it's just a lifetime of inflammation catching up with you. While you may not feel the damage happening day to day, it builds until one cold, one infection, or one flare-up pushes the lungs beyond what they can handle. Avoiding respiratory failure isn't just about quitting smoking. It's about recognizing patterns. It's about staying current with flu shots and pneumonia vaccines, using a humidifier in dry seasons, avoiding secondhand smoke, and being consistent with inhalers or treatments if you've already been diagnosed with a lung condition. Most importantly, it's about not ignoring breathlessness, even if it seems mild. The lungs don't have pain receptors, so they don't always shout when they're struggling. They whisper. If you listen closely, you can hear them early, before the oxygen drops, before the emergency room visits, before the decline. Pay attention to your breath. It's one of the few things in life that tells the truth without ever speaking. If you're finding these insights valuable, please let us know you're here. Your engagement helps us continue sharing information to inform and inspire. Now let's move forward. As we continue our journey through the silent threats that claim lives after 70, let's dive deeper into the hidden forces that can erode health without fanfare. These are not loud alarms, but quiet whispers, easily overlooked yet profoundly impactful. By shining a light on these dangers, we empower you to take control, to listen to your body, and to act before small issues become unstoppable crises. Let's explore the next two causes, each a silent predator, but each also within your power to confront. One of the most underestimated health threats after 70 isn't always visible in the mirror or obvious in how you feel day to day. It's diabetes, particularly when it has been silently wearing down the body over decades. You might feel fine. You might not even know you have it, but behind the scenes, high blood sugar levels chip away at everything: your nerves, your kidneys, your eyesight, and your ability to heal. Often it's not the diabetes itself that becomes fatal. It's the cascading damage it inflicts on the body's foundations over time. Unlike a heart attack or stroke, diabetes doesn't always announce its destruction in a single dramatic moment. It reveals itself in quieter ways: numbness in the feet, slow healing cuts, sudden changes in vision, or fatigue that lingers despite rest. These may seem minor at first, but they're often signs of something far deeper, signals that high blood sugar is damaging blood vessels and impairing your organs' ability to function. Consider George, a 79-year-old man who was always active and fairly lean. He never thought of himself as someone at risk for diabetes, but after a routine checkup, he learned his blood sugar had been elevated for years. He hadn't noticed, but the damage had already begun. Within 2 years, he developed kidney problems, nerve pain in his legs, and a foot wound that wouldn't heal. That wound led to an amputation, and from there his health spiraled, not just because of the wound but because of the infections, immobility, and emotional toll that followed. Diabetes is like water leaking behind a wall. You don't see the damage until it's compromised the entire structure. After 70, the stakes are higher. Wounds take longer to heal, infections are harder to fight, and complications can escalate faster than they would have in younger years. The good news? Even small steps can change the trajectory. Regular AV1C testing, blood sugar monitoring, daily movement, whether through short walks or chair exercises, being mindful of carbohydrates and hidden sugars, and watching for signs like leg swelling, changes in urination, or persistent fatigue. These aren't burdens, they're lifelines. If you've never been diagnosed but noticed these symptoms, or if it's been years since your last checkup, it's never too late to ask your doctor for a simple test. In many cases, it's not the diagnosis that shortens life. It's the years of silence that came before. Diabetes doesn't demand perfection, only awareness. By listening to your body and acting on its signals, you can protect the vitality that still thrives within you. Cancer in older adults doesn't always begin with pain. In fact, some of the most dangerous types, like pancreatic, colon, or prostate cancer, can grow for months, even years, without causing noticeable symptoms. That's what makes them so deadly. By the time they're discovered, they're often advanced, having quietly taken root while life went on as usual. Unlike other conditions, cancer doesn't always follow a predictable pattern. You might feel fine, eating normally, sleeping well, and going about your day without issue. But then something shifts: sudden loss of appetite, unexplained weight loss, new fatigue, or discomfort that lingers. It's easy to dismiss these as normal aging, to tell yourself it's just tiredness or nothing serious, until it isn't. Take Joyce, an 83-year-old woman who had always been healthy and independent. She started noticing bloating after meals, and a general sense of fullness that wasn't typical. Her appetite dipped, and her pants began to feel looser. Friends told her it was just aging, but something inside her urged her to get checked. The diagnosis was ovarian cancer, advanced, but still treatable. She later said the hardest part wasn't the diagnosis itself. It was knowing how easily she could have ignored it. Many seniors skip screenings, not out of neglect, but due to fear, inconvenience, or the belief that it's too late to matter. Yet early detection, even after 70, can make a world of difference. A simple colonoscopy can catch polyps before they turn dangerous. A low-dose CT scan can detect lung cancer early in former smokers. A PSA test or physical exam can identify prostate issues before they spread. Blood work can flag problems long before symptoms appear. Avoiding cancer isn't always about prevention. It's about attention. It's about noticing changes in your energy, digestion, appetite, or weight that seem unusual. It's about trusting your instincts when something feels off, and letting go of the notion that feeling fine means you are fine. After 70, health isn't just about adding years. It's about protecting the ones you have left with knowledge and vigilance. No one wants to think about cancer, but a few minutes of thought now could mean many more years of life later. Silence favors the disease, not the person. Listen to your body, and if something feels new or strange, speak up. Your voice could be your greatest defense. We've uncovered the silent dangers that lurk after 70, from the heart's quiet failures to the subtle growth of cancer. Now let's tackle the final two causes, threats that are often underestimated but carry immense consequences. These are not just medical issues. They're challenges to your independence, your vitality, and the life you've built. By understanding them, you gain the power to act, to protect what matters most, and to live with confidence. Let's dive in, and at the end we'll share a heartfelt wish for your health and future. As the body ages, the immune system slows. It becomes less efficient at recognizing threats, slower to respond, and more easily overwhelmed by infections that a younger body might shrug off. After 70, common infections can turn serious fast, to pneumonia, urinary tract infections, skin infections, and even the flu can spiral into sepsis or organ failure in mere days, not because the infection is unusual, but because the body's defenses are no longer as robust. Many seniors don't realize that their risk isn't just about exposure, it's about response time. A 30-year-old with the flu might spend a few days in bed and recover, but for an 80-year-old, the same virus can trigger widespread inflammation, disrupt breathing, and lead to hospitalization. What starts as a cough can become a crisis. What begins as a fever can end in a hospital bed with IVs and oxygen. Consider Walter, an 85-year-old man who was healthy, alert, and walked daily. One morning, he felt slightly tired and attributed it to poor sleep. By the afternoon, he had a mild fever. By the next morning, he was confused and unsteady. His family rushed him to the ER, where he was diagnosed with a urinary tract infection that had spread to his bloodstream. He was lucky, he recovered, but it was a stark reminder of how quickly things can change after 70. The signs of infection aren't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just confusion, a slight change in behavior, increased fatigue, or difficulty waking up. Because these symptoms are often mistaken for normal aging, treatment is delayed, and that delay can be deadly. The empowering truth: infections are often preventable, and when caught early, they're highly treatable. Staying hydrated, keeping wounds clean, washing hands regularly, and staying up to date on vaccines are small habits with big impact. Listening to your body, checking for fever, and not ignoring sudden changes in mental sharpness or energy can catch infections before they escalate. The immune system may slow with age, but you're not helpless. Acting sooner, paying closer attention, and trusting your instincts when something feels off can make all the difference. The quiet nature of infections in older adults is what makes them dangerous, but your awareness is what makes them beatable. Of all the threats after 70, perhaps none is as underestimated as a fall. It may not sound serious. After all, people trip and stumble all the time. But for older adults, a single fall can start a downward spiral that's hard to recover from. It's not just about broken bones, it's what happens afterward. The immobility, the hospitalization, the infections, the loss of confidence, and sometimes the loss of independence altogether. Falls are the #1 cause of injury-related death for adults over 70. This statistic rarely makes headlines, but it should, because while many imagine death after 70 comes from disease, it's often a fall that triggers the final decline. More often than not, that fall could have been prevented with a few small changes to the home, the body, and daily routines. Think of Carol, an 80-year-old woman who tripped on a rug in her hallway. She fractured her hip, underwent surgery, then rehab, but she never fully regained her balance. She became hesitant to walk far, then stopped going out altogether. Her muscles weakened, her mood plummeted, and within a year she was in assisted care. Not because of illness, but because of a single misstep. This happens more often than you think, and not always due to clumsiness. Sometimes it's medications that affect balance, poor lighting in a hallway, socks on hardwood floors, or a bathroom without grab bars. Sometimes it's just trying to carry too much at once. Once the fall happens, the body takes longer to heal, and the mind takes even longer to recover its confidence. Preventing falls isn't about living in fear, it's about foresight. Strengthening your legs with light exercises, getting regular vision checks, clearing clutter from walkways, adding nightlights, non-slip mats, and handrails, wearing proper shoes even at home, and listening to that inner voice that says, maybe I should sit down instead of pushing through. These are acts of empowerment. Falls can break more than bones. They can break routines, independence, and the will to move freely, but they don't have to. A little awareness, preparation, and humility in asking for support can preserve not just your safety, but your freedom. Protecting your life isn't just about dodging big diseases. It's about mastering the little moments that keep you upright and moving forward. As we reflect on these 6 causes, one truth stands clear. Life after 70 isn't just about avoiding death. It's about understanding where real danger lies, so you can protect what matters most. Not through fear, but through awareness. Not through drastic overhaul, but through small, deliberate actions that strengthen your body, sharpen your mind, and give you control over what many believe is inevitable. The heart doesn't have to fail quietly. The lungs don't have to collapse without warning. Diabetes doesn't have to steal your independence. Cancer doesn't have to go undetected. Infections don't have to spread unnoticed. And falls don't have to define your final chapter. Each of these threats begins without pain, without panic, without fanfare, but they're not invisible. You now know what to look for, and that knowledge is your power. This journey wasn't about doom. It was about empowerment. The power of paying attention, asking questions, and believing that even after 70, your health isn't on autopilot. It's something you can influence, nurture, and defend. You deserve that, because the years behind you were hard-won, and the years ahead still hold value, beauty, and meaning, but only if you stay here to embrace them. We wish you vibrant health, strength to face each day with confidence, and the wisdom to listen to your body's whispers. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next chapter.